Shanks versus Mihawk. Honestly, I was sort of avoiding this for quite some time because I didn't want this to be a hockey situation where we kept just saying, well, based on what we know, this is what Shanks probably can do, but maybe more since hockey transcends all. It was always pretty boring to do that, but now that we've seen, spoilers, Shanks fighting for the first time against a young Worst Generation member in Eustace Kid, coming off a big mom win in regards to his power, though I must admit he had help from, of course, Law, who is relatively on the same level as Kid. This is pretty much cut and dry on what we can expect from him. This topic seems to go through the recycling bin on Twitter or wherever else all the time and is constantly regurgitated and discussed, so I thought I'd finally answer it myself and end this conversation. Let me teach everything you need to know about Shanks versus Mihawk. Well, I do have some new things to say about Shanks and Mihawk in this video. The first thing you gotta always address when having any type of versus battle debate with characters that have this much insane energy and abilities, have these guys ever shown their peak in the story yet? And the answer is no, with both pirates adopting the Grand Line so far as their own little playthings and not even going 50% of their power in my humble opinion. The first time we ever see Shanks in any sort of combat situation is versus the Sea King outside of Luffy's hometown, where he's able to reach Luffy, who's at a decent distance off of the coast of the island, and rescue him before he gets eaten like the mountain bandit before him. But there's one problem about this combat situation. Knowing what we know now, Shanks should have never lost an arm, and Oda has admitted the editors actually thought it would make the story more impactful at the time, meaning he never even intended for Shanks to lose an arm to a creature that got one-shotted by a chapter 1 Luffy with the simple Gummo Gummo no pistol. And Shanks showcased during Egghead Island that he could stop a way greater threat level in Eustace Kid with ease. Even Whitebeard is confused on how Shanks lost an arm in the weakest sea, the East Blue, and he says he bid on the New Age, meaning there is no point in power scaling this moment in my opinion. Now I must mention Oda did slip in Shanks using Conqueror's Haki to scare the Sea King, which is more impressive than Luffy one-shotting in chapter 1, as this is also the first Haki ever used in the One Piece series, and I'm not surprised it's Shanks, as later on we would see the audience start to call him the Haki Man, but I'll discuss that more in a bit. Gin explained while in the Grand Line, Don Krieg's armada of 5,000 men and 50 ships was destroyed by one man with the eyes that could kill with the glare, Hawkeye. Mihawk then returned to slice the flagship to the shock of the cooks at the BRTA. They stated Mihawk looked human enough and had no special weapon, which Red Leg Zeph corrected them, saying his weapon is on his back. He's the world's greatest swordsman. Mihawk then told the Krieg pirates he was picking on them for fun and deflected the bullets with relative ease with just his sword. Zoro then told Mihawk he has never seen such subtle sword work, and Mihawk replied, without subtlety, a sword is just an iron bar. And we have seen this with King and how he used his weapon, and of course this current topic of the video is Shanks vs Mihawk, and many people believe this question is pointless because Shanks is a swordsman and Mihawk is the greatest swordsman, but I think the statement definitely warrants a discussion on the topic of skill and power. Mihawk then pulls out a pocket knife in one of the most disrespectful moments in not just One Piece but anime in general, but in hindsight makes all the sense in the world, as the current Conqueror's Haki coded Zoro is still not on Mihawk's level. Mihawk then blocks Zoro's named attack Onigiri that we love so much with ease. Zoro even stated nobody has ever countered that move up until that point, and he did it with a toy, striking fear into Zoro's heart at the realization he wasn't even close to Mihawk's level. Mihawk then continues to block an array of strikes with his small little knife and even insults Zoro's swordsmanship, calling it heavy-handed, aka clumsy, as he knocks Zoro to the ground and questions why he fights so hard even though he is a weakling. Mihawk then stabs Zoro, and only because he respects Zoro's will brings out the Black Blade to kill him, honoring the swordsman's code, as Zoro brings out the 3 sword style secret move 3000 World and gets 2 of his swords broken in the process, as he faces Mihawk once more, as his wounds on the back are swordsman's shame, and gets destroyed. Now some might say Mihawk didn't one-shot an East Blue Zoro, and that's meaning Mihawk is a fraud. But I actually think it's the opposite. Mihawk never intended on going all out from the beginning. He literally said the East Blue was the weakest sea. So yeah, this scene is cool and all, but the difference in power is so great, there is no point in using any of this to actually scale the world's greatest swordsman. And you'll start to notice as this is a pattern when it comes to Mihawk's power. He never truly goes all out. Now, I thought I mentioned Luffy tried to attack Mihawk after Zoro's defeat, and of course not being able to land a hit as well. But after Mihawk told Zoro to surpass him with shocked red leg Zeph, he asked Luffy his goal, and in which Luffy replied Pyrrhic, and he said, "You tread a perilous path, even more perilous than trying to surpass me." Now, some might use this to power scale Mihawk below the Yonko and Kaido, Big Mom, and Shanks, as they all are trying to become Pirate King, and they are the closest to Pirate King. The Yonko all trying to reach the Pirate Summit. And with Mihawk at Roger's execution, did he try and give up in the past? I'm not too sure, but I thought this was an important piece of information to discuss pertaining to Shanks versus Mihawk debate. I personally wanted to focus on more on Shanks and Mihawk's combat ability, but I would be doing a disservice not to mention them meeting after Luffy received his first bounty, and the first words they spoke was Shanks warning Mihawk he's in a bad mood. And did he come all this way to challenge him? And of course Mihawk replies, "I don't challenge one-armed has-beens." This is a clear-cut statement from the two individuals I'm debating that could be perceived in more than one way, but does continue to complicate the debate. Since Mihawk is a better swordsman, does that automatically make him stronger? And with the opposite side saying Shanks with two arms would be a greater swordsman and a stronger than Mihawk. All in all, it does make you think, but let's try to stick with their combat when discussing the two power. And lastly, I have to mention Mihawk confirmed Shanks and him meeting after Shanks lost his arm, when he said meeting Luffy reminded him of a story Shanks told about a boy in a certain village. And then I start to question, has Mihawk actually fought Shanks with one arm? To confirm his has-been statement he made on Red Haired, or is he just assuming? I must admit though, Mihawk fighting Shanks with one arm is a true lose-lose situation. From my perception wise, I kind of view it as fighting a girl. If you're a guy, if you lose, you lost to a girl. If you won, you just beat up a girl. And the same could be said for Mihawk. If he did beat Shanks, he has beat a one-armed man, and if he did lose to Shanks, he just lost to a one-armed man. For Mihawk's pride, it definitely would be detrimental. Honestly, I think it's funny that Oda first showed Shanks fighting seriously against Eustace Kid, who of course has one arm, maybe to even the playing field. Yeah, that's my last one-arm joke. Let's get back to the debate. Without any determination, there is no way you can stay conscious in front of that man. Knowing what we know now in the current story of One Piece, Josu's words have never been more clearer than now, as Shanks' haki was affecting the Moby Dick, and Oda clearly wanted to bring this unique power system through Shanks' character from chapter 1 and the Sea King to actually giving the power a name as he walked on Whitebeard's ship, knocking out the young Whitebeard pirates. Now of course Shanks told Whitebeard it was an enemy ship, and that's the reason he was using his haki, and he had no intentions to fight, as Whitebeard laughed, saying, "Your haki's in full force, cut the crap." This scene really shows how Whitebeard, a Conqueror's haki user himself, capable of clashing with Shanks, Captain Roger in a Conqueror's Haki Kota clash, and of course fighting for 3 days after that, really viewed Shanks as not a threat for just using haki. And at the time they were both Yonko alongside Big Mom and Kaido, who also had Conqueror's Haki, so everything does make sense. And Whitebeard mentions the duels between Mihawk and Shanks is still news to his ears, showing how this versus battle I'm discussing still has some missing context that could really end the debate. It will be much easier once we get that battle through a flashback, but until then we gotta look at each individual's list of feats, starting with Shanks clashing with the World's Strongest Man and splitting the skies with Conqueror's Haki. Though Whitebeard was older and connected to IV, Oda did mention you don't lose power as you age, just your other stats. So one-armed Shanks' power is legit, and he is not a one-armed has-been just from that clash. Now, side note, before I continue on with this debate, I would be foolish not to mention the reason Shanks met with Whitebeard in the first place, and that was his scar on his eye and who he received it from, Blackbeard. This is before Blackbeard became a Yonko, capable of taking down powerful fighters in Law, Marco, Boa and Hancock, even going back further in Ace. This was before Blackbeard became the only man in history to have two Delphoid abilities at the same time in the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gurgur no Mi. He stole from Whitebeard at Marineford, the world's strongest man. Now I must admit, Blackbeard almost broke Ace's neck with his raw power, and Ace did suggest he become the second division commander instead of himself, showing he wasn't no weakling without his Delphoid ability. But still, this is hard to believe, and Shanks even tells Whitebeard it wasn't a sneak attack, emphasizing Blackbeard is more of a threat than people consider. And I personally don't scale him lower for this. If I'm being honest, I don't scale Shanks lower for getting scarred by Blackbeard, while of course Shanks was aware of Blackbeard, but it is something I cannot ignore. I had to mention it. Now, the next important piece of information is when Shanks interfered when Kaido was trying to kill Whitebeard, or that's what the Marines thought was the case. Regardless of the fact, Kaido's intention, this exchange created waves in the One Piece world, and when Shanks arrived at Marineford, the Marines were in complete shock, given he just clashed with Kaido the day before. Mind you, Kaido is now, of course, considered the strongest creature alive and became a Yonko well before Shanks, as well as having a bounty worth 4.6 billion berries, compared to Shanks' 4 billion berry bounty. All I'm trying to say is this was a great feat by Shanks, given what it took to take down Kaido in the Wano arc, with the Red Scabbards, the Worst Generation, Zoro with his Conqueror's Haki coated attack that scarred him, Luffy's Conqueror's Haki coated in his base form, of course Yamato and his Yamato's mythical Zoan, and of course her Conqueror's Haki coating as well, and Momonosuke's Kaido Dullfoot lookalike as well, and then of course Luffy's coating his Gear 4th in Conqueror's Haki, and then awakening his Dullfoot ability in Gear 5th, his peak. Yeah, even Kaido was shocked how powerful Luffy was in that form. So yeah, Shanks' power is legit and makes sense why he was the only living man in Kaido's top 5. That also included a Prime Roger, Rox, Whitebeard, and Odin. Now going back to Mihawk, he lost a lot of aura to a lot of fans, given how he wasn't overpowering characters during Marineford as someone who used to duel with Shanks back in the day you would expect. And the first moment I want to talk about is during Marineford, when he stated the distance between that man and us seems rather small. Many viewed it as Mihawk putting Whitebeard of power above his own, though Japanese readers comprehended this on a more literal sense. Regardless of the statement, Mihawk attacks Whitebeard with a ferocious flying slash that is blocked by Jozu, the 3rd Division commander. This is like Shanks getting his attack blocked by Queen, and we've seen someone on Shanks level status wise in Big Mom literally 2-hit Queen while she was mentally nerfed, and as soon as she got her memories back, Queen was seen shitting himself. All in all, I would like to defend Mihawk here from the haters and mention Jozu is not your typical Yonko commander. First of all, his Diamond Delphu makes him one of the more durable characters in the One Piece world. Secondly, Jozu was able to make fellow cross guild member Crocodile bleed from one attack, highlighting his speed and power. Thirdly, Jozu made an Admiral Aokiji bleed as well, though Aokiji was snuck up on. I must admit, Aokiji fought Akainu for 10 days and the hero of the Marines, Garp, who Oda admitted still has the same power stats, but every other stat has weakened. Side note, Aokiji did have help, which he would later admit to Blackbeard, who praised him for taking down the legendary Marine. All I'm trying to say is after Marco's performance against both King and Queen, for all we know, Josu's power is not your typical Young Commander, in my opinion, so I'll cut Mihawk some slack here for Josu blocking his attack. It's not that bad. Oda then gives us Mihawk versus Luffy, surprisingly during Marineford, and Mihawk apologizes to Shanks and asks Fate if Luffy will be saved from his Black Blade, as Luffy is the leader of the new generation, confirming Mihawk was trying more here than we actually seen him try versus East Blue Zoro I spoke about earlier. Even Luffy acknowledges Mihawk's power in a rare occasion, stating Mihawk is too strong and he doesn't have time to fight him given Ace's execution. Mihawk's first attack goes through a bunch of Marines and pirates fighting and slashing Luffy, who tried to avoid it. The confrontation in general, as Mihawk states, "You're still within my range." Me personally, I seen this as an observation haki hint and Mihawk living up to his name as Hawkeye. Mihawk then uses his speed and lunges at Luffy in an attempt to stab him. This to me was the most active I've ever seen Mihawk, and Luffy narrowly dodges certain death. Two Newcomer fighters who had history with Mihawk try to come to Luffy's aid, and Mihawk crushes them like the insects they are. When it comes to the power difference, it was insane. This of course angers Luffy, who officially tries to attack Mihawk in Gear 2nd with Jet Bazooka, but Luffy sees his arm cutting off in a hint to the future side, in my opinion, showcasing how futile it was to try and fight the world's greatest swordsman. And let me remind you, before this fight, Luffy only struggled against Logias and Delfruit hacks like Magellan, so this was refreshing to see such a raw power difference between Luffy and his opponent. Mihawk then notices Luffy seems unusually calm, foreshadowing to Observation Haki and Future Sight that Luffy would master. Luffy then dodges Mihawk's slash that was capable of slicing the huge glacier in one of the best sword destructive capability feats we have seen. Luffy then dodges an array of Mihawk slashes as Mihawk taunts him, saying he is moving farther and farther from his brother, showcasing how Luffy was fighting on the back foot in front of the immense power that was facing him. Mihawk then slashes his Yonko captain, Buggy, as Luffy used Buggy to protect himself from Mihawk's slashes. I found that rather hilarious when it comes to Buggy and Mihawk's exchange here. Marco sees Luffy struggling so much with Mihawk and asks Vista to aid Luffy, which to me really shows how overpowered Mihawk was at the time. And some fans might say, if he really was that overpowered, why didn't he just one-shot Luffy like Kaido did during Wano? Well, to one-shot an opponent, they have to be willing to fight, which Luffy wasn't. And then I can simply just say plot. He's the main character. That plot armor is strong, guys. Now, this is people's probably favorite hot take to make Mihawk look bad, and that's the Vista clash we witnessed during Marineford. Now, Vista is not weak, as Oda confirmed him as a Armin Haki and Observation Haki user. Oda also showed him do a Haki imbued attack against Akainu during Marineford. And finally, Mihawk knew his name, Flower Sword Vista, stating he would be a fool not to know his name. If anything, Vista gets the Yonko commander buff that Marco and Jozu received, as the Whitebeard pirates are not your regular commanders. But yeah, I know, if you're truly Yonko level, you should be one-shotting Yonko commanders, like how Luffy came off of a Katakuri win during Whole Cake Island and Kaido one-shot him during the battle in Curry. But context matters in my opinion, as Mihawk even postpones his match with Mihawk. I believe it's the same reason Kaido never one-shot any of the worst generation on the rooftop. A lot is going on in my opinion. That's why Vista agreed to postpone the match as well. I don't think you can truly power scale Mihawk off this Vista exchange, as I truly believe Mihawk wasn't going all out once during the war. Case in point, when Luffy was attempting to save Ace, Mihawk shot another flying slash towards his direction, which Mr. One blocked with his dull fruit ability that Zoro needed to be able to cut steel to get through during Alabasta, in which Mihawk says Da's bones, acknowledging his name, and then proceeds to one-shot him. But that's not what I'm highlighting. I'm highlighting the fact that Mihawk clashes with Crocodile, his future cross-skilled Yonko crew member, that he should again be easily able to one-shot. Oda is holding back Mihawk during Marineford. I'm sorry to the naysayers, it's just the truth. So it's hard to power scale. Now, the last thing I want to discuss pre-time skip is Shanks arriving at Marineford, because people don't truly understand how epic this was. Firstly, he blocked Akainu's Magma Fist with relative ease. We seen Marco and Jinbei struggling to hold back Akainu's Magma, and Ace literally got burnt. The best we've seen was probably Whitebeard, but to see Shanks stop Akainu and for Akainu not to attack immediately shows the respect he has for Shanks' power. Akainu doesn't just mindlessly fight, and he is calculated, so this meant a lot in scaling wise. Shanks' power in my opinion. And then Mihawk leaving causes a stir in the fan base. A lot of people viewed this as fear, where we already seen Mihawk deny fighting Shanks during the East Blue because of course Shanks having one arm, so I was not shocked at all. And then finally Blackbeard, who just recently received Whitebeard's Dove Fruit, the Gur no Mi, and was planning to destroy Marineford as he fought Sengoku and Garp and had no fear of the other admirals, declined to fight Shanks, saying he's not ready, even though I previously mentioned how he scarred Shanks at an earlier time when he was much weaker. This is aura if I ever seen aura by a character in One Piece. When the guy who scarred you when he was weaker gets way stronger and says, I'm not ready to fight you. This is why I never looked too deeply into Blackbeard scarring Shanks. Now, the first thing I want to speak about post-time skip was during the Dressrosa arc, after Zoro's first time coding his swords in Armin Haki and defeating Pika's full body Armin Haki. He thinks back on Mihawk training him, where we see Mihawk explaining Haki is how Zoro avoids breaking his blade, and every scratch is a mark of shame. He even lets Zoro know every blade can become a black blade like his, and this made me think of Shisui and how Mihawk probably said something about it during the time skip training, and Zoro's scar on his eye having to be from Mihawk. Maybe Oda shows this when they meet again, but enough speculation. All I'm trying to say is Mihawk's Haki is legit, as only him and Ryuma have a black blade, the little sword god, or that's what the Wano people called him, so expect his Armin Haki or Ryo to be legit when he does battle someone worthy of him bringing it out. And The fact that he's teaching Zoro Haki, like we saw who taught Luffy Haki, Rayleigh, and Rayleigh had Conqueror's Haki coding when he went to go face Blackbeard. Now fast forwarding to the end of Wano, we see Shanks surprising us again by showing up and stopping another admiral in Green Bull, but this time by just using his Conqueror's Haki. He never even stepped foot on Wano, something we have never seen in the story before. It really reinforced Josu's words when Shanks initially showcased Conqueror's Haki in Whitebeard's ship, and this time Yonko Commander Jinbei was the one to really hype up Shanks' Haki after witnessing the admiral back down. Side note, Green Bull earlier took down King and Queen, though weakened, and tanked a Conqueror's Haki coded attack from Yamato, and intended on facing Yonko Luffy, so he is not no coward. Even recently we seen him fight fellow Admiral Fujitora while also capturing Edward Weevil, who Kizaru compared his power to a Whitebeard in his youth. Yeah, Oda, we get it, Shanks is strong. Now Brand New has been a character since the beginning of One Piece during the East Blue days. Brand New is the guy who reports bounties and reports news in the Marines. In a lot of people's eyes, Brand New ended the Shanks versus Mihawk debate when he issued a bounty of nearly 3.6 billion berries, more than Blackbeard's first bounty as a Yonko, which I think was around 2.2 billion, Loki's special bounty, which was 2.6 billion, and the two new current Yonko and Luffy and Buggy, which are around 3 billion berries, which in my opinion just confirms Mihawk to be Yonko level minimum in power. And then you see Brand New also say he has a greater sword skill than Shanks, and this is where I talk about the debate being ended. That's it guys, video complete. Maybe I should have just started with this, would have saved a lot of time for all of us. Okay, jokes aside, Shanks supporters don't deny Mihawk as the world's greatest swordsman and being a better swordsman than Shanks in general. They just feel Shanks is stronger because of his Haki. I know people love that Naruto pain debate, Mihawk and Shanks and the iconic Haki Man joke, but I must admit, Oda did not help when we actually do see Shanks fight after Wano. Yep, that's right, Shanks is actually a Haki Man. First off, Shanks' Haki allows him to shut off other people's future sight. This was confirmed in film Red. But not only is his Haki able to do this, he can of course see into the future himself for 10 seconds. This was confirmed in the Useless Kid fight, when he's seen Useless Kid wipe out his entire fleet and then rush to eliminate the threat with a divine departure with Conqueror's Haki coding on this attack and eliminating not just Kid but also his powerful Vice Captain Killer in one attack. That Haki Man meme started to become a reality, and with Kaido telling Luffy Roger became Pirate King with just Haki, as Haki transcends all, even sword skill, as we know Zoro is a better swordsman than Kaido and Luffy if they use the sword, but their Conqueror's Haki is way better than Zoro, making them stronger. A lot of people gave into the idea of Shanks being above Mihawk after he showcased his attack against Eustace Kid, who mind you just tanked a bunch of Big Mom's attacks where we seen her in Wano coding her attacks in Conqueror's Haki. Then I have to mention a side note, Oda did say that Shanks is the only character that can actually replicate Roger's moves. None of the Roger pirates could do it. The apprentice on the ship is the only one who could do it, guys. Then of course there's Buggy saying that Shanks' potential shown so high that he believed he was the next king, the next generation king. Oda then doesn't help the Haki Man meme when Joy Boys conquers Haki from the Void Sentry, blasts the Gorosei into human forms, knocks out every marine not named Kizaru, and had Dory and Broggy question if it was stronger than Shanks, confirming Shanks to have the strongest Haki since Roger existed. And they even state Shanks' Haki was more hostile than Joy Boy's, though Joy Boy could have been more powerful. All in all, it was looking bad for Mihawk fans. Now I must admit, I do believe Mihawk is incredibly powerful. His blade is proof enough since Zoro still hasn't made any of his swords a black blade. But what we need to understand is my respect for Mihawk is his Haki. Yes, being the world's greatest swordsman is cool and all, but if that title is enough to make him the strongest, do we start putting him over Roger, the Pirate King, who was stronger than swordsmen Silver's Rayleigh and Kazuki Oden, all minimum Yonko level characters in their prime? Like, where do we stop with this logic? And that's why, until proven otherwise, I would rather go with Kaido's statement of Haki transcends all, as we've seen Roger Joy Boy, who had Imu shook, and Imu's power is incredible after what we've seen him do to Saturn, a Conqueror's Haki user as well. So yeah, it's safe to say Shanks has shown me he is stronger than Mihawk as of now. Debate in the comment section if you disagree, as I will try to respond to as much as I can. Have a great day, guys.